Yo, 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 it's your boy Casual Real with the Silent A podcast. And man, we're back with another one. And a quick one at that. Yo, hit that like button. It's free. Helps us get eyes on the show. And more importantly, continue to subscribe, man. We really appreciate that love. And for this, let's get straight into it. Has the sport of boxing bypassed Gervonta the Tank Davis? Yeah, you heard us right. Has the sport of boxing finally bypassed, went over, skipped over the likes of Gervonta the Tank Davis? Why do we say this? WBA regular champion, 135-pound division, Gervonta Tank Davis. Been in the league for a while now, over a decade. One of the youngest talents, knockout artists, all knockouts pretty much in his fights, but only two people went the distance with him. A man that delivered action and delivered the culture to the sport of boxing, arguably one of the faces of boxing. Hell, is probably the face of boxing, him and Canelo Alvarez. You know us, we always say there's plenty of faces in boxing, but those two men right there are carrying the sport via pay-per-views, you name it. They've got the cultures behind them. They've got the people behind them. They've got people chasing and attaching their names behind them. But why are we saying this today is boxing bypassing the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis. It's simply in the fact of what we just started with. WBA regular, WBA champion, you name it. WBA, Gervonta Tank Davis, the accolades pretty much what he's had since stepping into the sport of boxing, 135-pound division. Outside of that, he is clearly and arguably one of the biggest names, one of the biggest cash fights, one of the biggest money fights in the lighter weight divisions under 147 pounds. But the sport of boxing, let's get to the word sport, not the business of boxing. I think the business of boxing is still there for Gervonta Tank Davis, still one of the biggest names, arguably, and still is in those lighter weight divisions, not named Canelo Alvarez, who's sitting at 168 pounds. The sport of boxing, has it bypassed the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis, meaning the sport of where it is now in terms of accolades, terms of men fighting each other, terms of men making achievements in the sport of boxing? You look at his peers, and some older, some younger. You got the likes of Devin the Dream Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia. These three, who have been rumored for the longest time to be around the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis. They all moving up at around the same time. You've got the likes of Devin Dream Haney, who's already undisputed. 135 pounds, moved up to 140, got him a belt. Now going up to 147 to hopefully get his third championship belt in the sport of boxing, all this under the age of 30. Teofimo Lopez captured multiple belts, beat the likes of Lomachenko, so did Devin Dream Haney, moved up to 140, got him a belt as well, and now chasing bigger fights in those higher weight classes. Ryan Garcia is probably similar stature as Gervonta Tank Davis. I believe only got him one belt, if that, in the 140-pound division, but is a name, is a face, and who's been fighting, getting on big cards and taking on okay opposition. Now, he went down to the likes of Rolly Romero. But let's keep moving a little bit further because you got other men who have stepped in and have not been around as long. Abdullah Mason, Floyd Schofield, Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson, arguably one of the better talents of the ones we just named, potentially probably the most talented between him and Tank of any of the names we just mentioned. Shakur, weight division champion, about to take on William Zepeda, getting big fights, big names. Now, he's had some injuries that's been kind of prolonging him in his hands. We already know how that goes. But as far as his name being mentioned with the next people to coming up, the likes of the Keyshawn Davises, the Richardson Hitchens of the world that's sitting at 140 pounds. These men that we just named are taking on the big names, taking on the big fights. Floyd Schofield, hell, even though we all clowned him for dipping out February 22nd, 2025, being sick, now coming back, taking on the likes of Tevin Farmer, who was supposed to take on the likes of Gervonta Davis for years and years and years. That fight would never get done. Came in and whitewashed him in the first round. Now Floyd Schofield's name is getting thrown in with the likes of Shakur Stevenson again, or Abdullah Mason, or hell, even moving up and taking on like a Rolly Romero if he wants to come back down to 140, or a Teofimo Lopez. Abdullah Mason is being touted as one of the realest men in the lighter divisions. Young talent taking on whoever he can get his hands on. Has the sport of boxing started to bypass the likes of Tank Davis, who is now stalled out with a potential rematch fight with the likes of Lamont Roach? Not a big name, but it should be a decent fight because of what we saw the first one with all the controversy. But for the fact that Tank has been around for so long and never got that Lomachenko fight that two of his brethren had already got. Rumored that he was going to get it at some point, and then we all know what happened. Lomachenko has finally, retired. Now that's gone. Bypass, it's done. Everybody that was around his time frame, the Devin Dream Haneys, the Teofimos, all of them have moved up in weight. Even Keyshawn Davis, as sad of a situation his was in his last fight that didn't happen, has also now moved up to 140 pounds. Floyd Schofield and probably Abdullah Mason won't be around that long at 135. These men are jumping up and challenging themselves, moving up to 140 pounds, moving up to 147 pounds, getting the big fights, calling out the big names, getting the belts, getting the accolades. What is going to be left in the 135-pound division if Tank doesn't move up? And maybe about time he decides to maybe move up to 140 pounds, what's going to be left there? What fight is going to be there for him, especially getting to the real crux of the issue, remaining with the PBC? There's not a lot of names left underneath that banner. Don't get me wrong. Love the PBC. Shout out to them. But without crossing the sides of the street and doing business with other promotional companies or promoters in general, what fights really remain for Tank to continue to grow the brand and continue to grow his name? It becomes limited. Can he still do the pay-per-views? Heck yeah. He's Tank Davis. He's a symbol. He's a culture. He is a face in the sport of boxing, similar to Canelo Alvarez, who can break out and do his own thing, which he has been doing. People are going to pay to see him fight. He's always going to get paid. He's always going to get the money. He still is a business of boxing person. But as far as getting into the sport of boxing and getting the accolades, I'm starting to worry that the sport in the current environment is starting to bypass it like a Tank Davis. These young guys aren't waiting around. These young guys are getting it in. These young guys are putting hands on people. They are doing some punching. They're not sitting around, and they're also getting to the bag now. They're getting paid. Shout out to Turkey Al Sheik. Shout out to Riyadh Season. Shout out to Top Rank. Shout out to Eddie Hearn and company. Those guys have kind of been pushing those lighter weight divisions to kind of challenge themselves and move on up. Eddie Hearn helped build Richard Hitchens, get his name out there, get him promoted. He's been around for a while, but finally got him popular, got him popping. Now look at him. The challenges that these guys are taking, the leaps and bounds that they're doing, the mixing it up, the punching that they're doing is starting to alienate the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis and the PBC brand. The only way I can see Tank getting really back into the sport of boxing, and let's argue about that, is I'm not too sure if my brother even really wants to be around the sport of boxing too often, because one day he's in and the next day he's talking about he wants to retire. If he really wants to remain in the sport of boxing and grow and get the accolades, the only way to do that is to go do business with the other fellas, the other promotional companies, the other promos, cross the street. I'm not saying leave PBC. We're saying break out and do business, just like the likes of David Benavidez is doing. You can still be tied to the PBC. These guys do cross to work all the time. I don't see what the issue is, especially when it comes to Tank Davis. Yeah, he's a name. Yeah, they want to keep a lot of the money into themselves, but you can make a big bag taking on some of these big fighters who's been sitting there, who's taking on the challenges and proving themselves. No reason we can't get a Shakur Stevenson fight. No reason we can't get a Floyd Schofield fight. No reason we can't get a Teofimo Lopez fight, who's still sitting around 140, hasn't moved up to 147 yet. I think Devin Dream Haney fight's kind of getting out of pocket and maybe too far. He's getting really big now, 147. Don't really want to see a Ryan Garcia fight again. Abdullah Mason will take the fight, but maybe be a little green, but that'll be a big money fight. You got to go across the street and work with these fellas. We can't let the sport of boxing pass the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis. These new guys are challenging, growing, building, and arguably becoming faces themselves. If we stick with this program, stick with the diet that we've been on, stick with the old way of doing business, eventually the old way of doing business, which has been good, will go away. People will stop tuning in. It no longer becomes a draw. It no longer becomes sustainable. And more importantly, at the end of the day, when you hang up your hat and you retire and you look back, what did you really do? What was the highlight? What was the Hall of Fame marquee fights and the accolades that you look back and you say, damn, I did it all. I did what I could. I did the best I can. And I did take the toughest challenges and still got to the bag. Made a lot of money already. But where's the marquee fights? Especially for someone who is as talented as the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis. Anyways, man, we talked way too long on this. Question out to the audience is, has the sport of boxing, not the business, he's still a businessman, he's still getting money, but as the sport of business, and especially in the environment that it is now, bypass the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis, and can he get back into that running for the most achieved and most skilled and most talented lighter weight fighters in our era? Hit that like button, man. Comment below, and as always, subscribe if you got the time. And appreciate that love. Until the next time. Peace.